I remember the first guy that I taught, he walked into this studio and very shy, and very nervous. And I was also nervous, going like, did someone just pay me to teach him how to dance? What the hell? Do not let him on that this is potentially a scam. Like, there's no way he's paying me to teach him how to dance, but whatever, let's roll with this. And he told me his story. He said, so obviously I don't know how to dance. Also, on top of that, I'm gay. And so everyone expects me to know how to dance. They think I'm a fantastic dancer. And he went, that is so far from the truth. I need so many shots of booze in order to like not, get lost in my thoughts, to not feel embarrassed because I know I'm embarrassed myself, to not know that people are staring, wondering, why can't this gay man dance? And for the first, half hour of the lesson, he was staring down at his feet. Like his whole body was basically in that of shame, just like shoulders caved in, head down, arms crossed, as if he was literally guarding himself from being attacked. And he started learning a few basic moves, like very simple moves, and it started to feel good. And once he got the moves and he started doing it to the beat, and he noticed that, he's like, okay, cool, it's going to the beat. And then his shoulders relaxed, his arms relaxed. And I remember he looked up at the mirror in front of him, and then he smirked. He smiled and went, what's up? He went, oh, I think I'm beginning to learn how to dance. I think I can dance. I went, damn straight you can dance.
I'm Srini Rao, and this is the Unmistakable Creative Podcast, where you get a window into the stories and insights of the most innovative and creative minds who've started movements, built thriving businesses, written best-selling books, and created insanely interesting art. For more, check out our 500-episode archive at unmistakablecreative.com. Ben, welcome to the Unmistakable Creative. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us.
Thanks for having me, Srini.
Yeah, it is my pleasure to have you here. So, I came across your story actually by way of one of our listeners who somehow found a TED Talk that you did about dancing and using dancing as a way to build confidence. And I looked at it and, I get a lot of things sent to me, but for some reason I couldn't stop watching this TED Talk. It just made me laugh. I was like, okay, this is just a really cool story. But before we get there, I want to start with, a question that I've been known to start with, and that is, what do you think it is, from early childhood, like an experience, a memory, or something that planted the seed in your mind for what you eventually ended up doing with your life and your work?
The first memory that pops into mind is fourth grade Catholic school in Brooklyn. Wasn't raised Catholic, but my family thought that, Catholic school, good education. So I went there, and for recess, all the guys would normally be playing sports. They'd be playing football, basketball, something along those lines. And instead, with my little posse of two other kids, Jonathan and Ethan, we'd be playing pretend. We would be acting out scenes and whatnot. Superheroes, Spider-Man, Batman, etc. And that was pure bliss for me. And I just remember from that point onwards, in long car rides, because we often took cross-country trips, I would have my Discman, my Sony Discman, and I listened to songs in there, and I'd always imagine action scenes. With every song I would see this, Jackie Chan style action scene play out, and I just thought that would be the coolest thing in the world. And I never thought of it as like a career. I just thought of it as, oh, this is what happens when you listen to music. You imagine, people kicking ass and taking names, and somehow that led to learning how to dance, which was something that frustrated me for a while, which was because I would hear music, but I just didn't know how to move to it. It would, you feel that rumble in your belly, that creative burn, and I just couldn't manifest it. And so after several years, I finally learned how to dance. And although I wasn't kicking ass like Spider-Man and whatnot, I could still, move to the music in a way that felt badass. So it's kind of how it all started, from fourth grade playing pretend.
Okay. Well, one question about this. First, do you remember what the very first CD or album that you owned was?
Holy crap. All right. So this is going to A, out my age, and B, be very embarrassing. My first introduction to music was through my cousin, and she loved pop music. And so naturally, she introduced me to NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. So probably my first CD was NSYNC's first album. So that's what I was rocking out to on those cross-country trips to, California and Grand Canyon, listening to NSYNC, Let Her Rip, a cappella style. There we go.
Also people who dance. So not a strange coincidence or not.
Yes, they can dance. Justin Timberlake, that man can move.
All right, so here's what was really interesting to me, because like what I know about you basically is what you've told me and what I found from your TED Talk, which we'll link up in the show notes. But walk me through the journey from fourth grade to this. Like, how do you go from that moment of this love for music, this love of moving to music? Like, what has happened between there and how I found you? Because I can't imagine it was just sort of a straight and narrow path, because straight and narrow paths very rarely lead to destinations like this.
Oh, I think my mom is still asking this question to this day.
Don't worry, my mom asks it every day.
Asian parents. Yeah. Let's see. Honestly, I was on the straight and narrow, like Asian path. I had all the good grades. I thought I would go to medical school. In middle school, my family would always go to Borders bookstore every Friday, and I would go straight to the college guides section and memorize literally I think Princeton Review top 100 whatever college guides. So I was like on that path for a while, and by the time I got to college, I was a little sick of academia, and so I started taking these classes just for fun. And two of those classes included breakdancing and circus, and so I tried them out and thought this is kind of fun, and spent more time doing this stuff than actually attending class. And by my senior year, I was going to class maybe like once a week, twice a week. Mom, if you're listening to this, I love you. I swear I was studying hard. And I majored in philosophy. And by the time I graduated, I thought, I have no idea what I'm doing. And so a friend that taught me the basics of gymnastics and invited me to, she introduced me to circus. She said, hey, I'm living in Seattle right now and doing circus stuff. You want to come out here and do circus? And so naturally, as a philosophy major, I wasn't going to be doing anything else. So I thought, why the hell not? I'll do some circus stuff for a summer just for fun. And I ended up living in Seattle for 3 years, pursuing circus arts and performing circus. And during that time, I eventually got over my fear of dance, which is a story in itself, and then decide, I kind of like this dance thing, I kind of like this circus thing, let's combine them. And I started doing performances that incorporate dance and acrobatics and clowning.
Wow. Okay. Multiple questions come from that. I think that the first one, of course, is, there's no way, me being Indian, you being Asian, we can't get through this conversation without talking about our parents.
Of course.
I have to ask you what this relationship with your parents is like, especially when you kind of have basically violated every, sort of expectation. I mean, this is as far from med school as you could possibly get. So I'm curious what that whole experience has been like with your parents.
To be honest, it is still unfolding to this day. It's, as I imagine most relationships are, but in college, I still gave the impression of I'm going on the right path. But that's when things started to get a little uneasy, and that I wanted to take a year off from college. I wanted to take time away from college because academia was not feeling fulfilling. It felt basically, I studied philosophy because I thought it would give me the answers to what living a good life could be, how I could live a good life. And I discovered philosophy didn't have the answers to it. And the more I pursued movement-related stuff, creative stuff like dance and circus, I found that more purposeful, more fulfilling. And so there's this discord. And so when I went to Seattle to do circus, I told my parents that, okay, this is just for the summer. I just need a little break from academia. And so they went, oh, okay, cool. Take a little break from academia. And then, of course, grad school. And just as a little context, I'm mixed. So my dad is Caucasian, he's Scottish, and my mom is Chinese. And I've kind of internalized their own conflict, which is my dad was always about follow your gut, your intuition, your higher calling. and always stress that there's a difference between academia and your own education. And so I was following more in that line starting in college, whereas my mother, understandably, wanted me to live a respectable life, a stable life, a secure life. And so the more she realized that this circus thing was lasting longer, the more she got worried, the more anxious she got. And eventually I became the black sheep of my Asian family. Like literally, they told my younger sister, do not become like your brother. There is still hope for you. Like, make sure to study hard. So in no uncertain terms, I was the outcast, the one that did circus and dated questionable circus women. Yeah. And even till now, it's less frequent, but it used to be about once a week, the conversation of, so what about medical school, about grad school? And it got to the point where my family was literally trying to bribe me to go to medical school. They said, we will take care of everything for you. We will pay for it. We will buy you a place in New York City. You will have a car. You will have Spanish wine. I don't know where the Spanish wine came in, but for some reason I thought that would be like a nice little bonus. Like, you'll have booze, really good booze. But they were literally trying to bribe me to go back to medical school. And at first I was really pissed, like so annoyed. Like, why would you insist on this? But from their perspective, it makes sense. They came over to the U.S. during the Vietnam War. When they came to the U.S., they were looked down upon. They were not respected. And so in their mind, they do not want me to have lowly work that someone could look down upon, someone could think less of, and that I would have a stable life that can provide for a future family. So it makes sense, but it took me a while to be calm with that. At first I went, why won't you let me do circus? I love circus. Circus is great. And the women are gorgeous. I mean, circus is fulfilling creatively. So, and it's still a conversation to this day, but less intense.
You probably have a pretty good shot at getting into med school, given your unusual background.
Maybe, if I wanted that, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have to ask about the circus because, I think for most of us, like, we hear the word circus and, what comes to our mind is things like Ringling Brothers, like elephants and all the things that we've seen on TV or experienced growing up as kids. But yeah. I'm really curious, like, what is the day-to-day life of somebody who is in a circus group like? Like, what are your daily habits like? What are your routines? What are your social relationships like? You mentioned gorgeous women. So I want to do a deep dive into the life of, what is the world of the circus? Like, it kind of give us, take us into that world.
Yeah. So I moved to Seattle to work at a circus school since I never grew up doing gymnastics, but in college I took a few classes and turned out I had a slight aptitude for this sort of stuff. And so went to Seattle to teach and then eventually to train to be a full-time circus artist. And so I was both teaching and performing on the side. And so the teaching part was it's like a normal job, but my office happened to be 3 large warehouses with colorful, bouncy objects all over the place. And when I say hello to my coworkers, they happen to be standing on each other's heads. And so like slightly different coworkers than normal. And the part that sticks out the most in my mind was the community. It is, for the most part, circus communities, you walk in and their first thing they say to you is like, hey, you want to come play with us? Like, there's room for everyone. There is a specialty for everyone. There is space. It's not like ballet where there's a certain body type or other sports where you need certain, predisposed advantages. In circuses, there are people there that, let's see, a couple that they were medical researchers and then decide, we want to be duo trapeze artists. And so they left that all behind and in their late 20s, early 30s decided to pursue that. And so they were some of the people I hung out with. And it is just an extremely welcoming, playful, creative community, which is probably why I stayed in Seattle for so long, is that you walk in and it's a version of Cheers. Everyone knows your name and they're fun, playful, loving. And when you perform, you get to feel like a rock star. And so I think that's, at least that's what kept me for a while, the community and getting an opportunity to shine, feel like you're seen. And as for daily habits, I wish I could say it was, a very elite, intense thing, but circus folk, nah, not really. It's, you happen to come in at, 10 a.m., 11 a.m., whenever you happen to wake up, you train a little bit, hang around, talk a lot. And then, if you happen to be performing that night, you go, you get ready for rehearsal, you perform, depending on how Russian you are, maybe have a few shots beforehand and get on stage, perform. People come up to you afterwards, cheer, applaud, hug, and then you go home and figure out what the hell you're going to do the next day.
What is the training like? I mean, what's involved in the training? Like, let's say somebody listening to this is like, okay, now I'm fascinated. I wonder what I can do to go get involved in the circus in some way or another. Mm-hmm. Because, I'm working on a new book about creative habits. And the first thing that came to my mind when you've been describing this is, I should go in and take a class and experience this.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned gorgeous women. So that kind of was a selling point.
Srini, you have come to New York. Anyways, we'll save that conversation for another time. Habits. All right. So if someone wants to get into the circus, you would find a circus school, a pre-professional or professional training program. And it varies from place to place, but I can at least speak to my own experience when I was training, which was I would wake up, go in, and you go through your warm-ups, your prehabilitation, and you do lots and lots of drills. Like, that's so much of circus, in that you are trained to be able to perform that one skill, those 3 skills that either no one else can do or no one else can do it the way you do it. And it's just repetition after repetition after repetition. And you drill that over and over again. Like my acrobatics coach, this 6'2", lanky Frenchman, and when normally acrobats aren't that tall. Normally they're much shorter. And yet when he would flip, it's like a cat, like no noise. And so when he trained me, he would tell me my homework for the week. And he would say, all right, now I want you to do 100 cartwheels every day, 50 backflips every day, a few hundred this, a few hundred that. And I thought first time I worked with him, I thought he was joking. And he went, no, that's what you're going to do. And I went, but why? He went, I want it so that if I were to smack you in the middle of the night awake, you could do it without any hesitation, without any problems. Like, it needs to be in your bones. And so a lot of circuses is drilling. And then, you're doing your flexibility, your strength training. So, and also depends on your discipline. If you're doing, say, acrobatics versus juggling versus tight wire, but a large part of the time is spent drilling. And as for actual how much, it varies. Some people are old school, like my coach, and he would say you do hundreds every day. So depends on how Russian and Chinese there are. If they're Russian and Chinese, God be with you, and I hope you have a good masseuse or chiropractor on speed dial. The more American, the more lax they'll be with the hundreds of repetitions and hundreds of push-ups and pull-ups. So it depends on what's your poison. What's your ideal form of pain and torture?
So what did you learn from circus about performance and about creativity?
Early on, when I was getting ready to perform my first solo act, I was drilling it over and over again, and I was terrified because I wanted to make it a clowning act. I wanted to be like Buster Keaton, this guy that has amazing physicality. And even though he doesn't say a single word, you feel him emotionally. And I was getting ready to create my first ever piece like that in homage to him. And I kept thinking shit, what if this is just not funny at all? What if what I find funny, the audience is going to go, seriously, dude? Man, I need more drinks to watch this kid. And a buddy of mine, a juggler named Nikolai, he gave me the best advice I've ever received on performing, and one that I still keep to this day and actually tell the people that I work with. And he said, when you're on stage, just know the audience wants you to win. They are rooting for you. They are on your side. And so even if you mess up, smile, acknowledge it, because they want you to win. And something about that really stuck with me. He just said, and similarly, the more you enjoy yourself, the more they're going to enjoy themselves. All you have to do is let them in. Have a blast, and they're going to have fun with you. You are opening them up to your world of fun, and they will love you for it. That's all you have to do. And sure enough, that's kind of what did it for me, and stuck in my mind since. So whether it's performing, whether it's just dancing, if you are having fun, you become a beacon to other people. Naturally, like, who doesn't want to be around the person that's having a blast, that is just beaming with light and joy? And so that's the thing that stuck with me the most. Just the more I have fun on stage, the more people are going to enjoy what they see.
So I don't know about you, but vacuuming is not one of those things that I ever look forward to doing. But as you know, your environment has a huge impact on your creativity. So I still like it to be clean wherever I'm living and working. But now it doesn't have to be something that you deal with. If you're like me and you grew up in the 80s, you probably fantasized about the day when cleaning your house would be like it was for the Jetsons, meaning you don't have to lift a finger. Well, the good news is that we're already kind of living in that future. And the easiest way to make sure your floors are clean every day is with the iRobot Roomba Robot Vacuum. It cleans up after itself. The Clean Base automatic dirt disposal takes convenience to a new level, automatically empties its own bin into an allergen lock bag that holds 60 days of debris and traps 99% of pollen, mold, and dust mites, so you can forget about vacuuming for months at a time. Let the Roomba clean for you instead. It learns your home, finds dirt, and empties itself on its own. It's got powerful cleaning performance made effortless. Remember, if it's not from iRobot, it's not a Roomba. To learn more, go to irobot.com/unmistakable. It's funny. I think of that, from the lens of public speaking as well as even doing interviews, and I kind of feel the same way about it.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
I know when I'm not having fun because I've been, obnoxious enough to cut interviews in the middle of them.
Yeah.
All right. So, I want to ask you one other question. You made a sort of pivotal decision to say, you know what, you're kind of at this crossroads of med school or the circus, and you're like, okay, despite a lot of external opposition, I'm going to go and do this crazy circus thing. And I think that often we come to those kinds of crossroads in our lives over and over and over again. Like every time we want to do something of significance that could alter the trajectory of our lives, we arrive at moments like that. And I am wondering why, based on your experience, you think people choose the more safe and conventional route.
It's something I still wrestle with. And it's, even though I made that choice to pursue the unconventional route, it still came with a heavy dose of Asian guilt, like some serious Asian guilt. And so, at least from my background, my history, I can understand a little better why someone would choose a conventional route. In that, at least from having immigrant parents, you don't want to let them down.
Yeah.
They come to the U.S., they give so much, they sacrifice so much. I think about how much my mom sacrificed to give me the opportunities I had, and it pains me. It actually pains me how much she gave up, and so I can understand why, if you have parents, immigrant parents, you want to do right by them, So there can be that conflict between what do I feel called to do and what do I think would make my family proud, to do right by them, to give back to them, for all the things that they gave, sacrificed for me. And in that context, it's very much understandable. And it's something I still think about to this day, when my mom was asking me to, again, pursue grad school, another route. And I just know that she doesn't want to see me suffer, essentially, is what comes down to it. And so, in that way, I can understand why someone would choose a safer route, to not let their parents down, their family down, to know that they can give back and provide.
Yeah. What do you think enables them to choose the unconventional route? What makes that possible, as somebody who's done it?
Yeah. Well, I will be honest and say that what helped a lot was that I was across the country when I made this decision. If I was having to face my mother in person, it would be a lot harder. But I was, in Seattle talking to her on the phone. I'm trying to think what did it. And what made it easier to decide was, I guess this is really simple and nothing particularly mind blowing, but just the joy and the work itself. Like the more, it was the sense of trusting myself and knowing that I could both love my mother, love my family, be thankful for what they gave me, and still pursue something that makes me sing, to trust that I will be just fine, that I will be all right, that I will be able to take care of myself. So it was knowing that it didn't have to be an or decision. It could be and. I could love them, do right by them, and live a life that I'm proud of. And saying it right now, I think, like, young Ben, why did you not think of that? It is not like an either or sort of thing. You can do both, but man, that Asian guilt is insidious, dude.
Yeah. Well,
and I'm curious about you, actually, if you don't mind me asking, like, is this something that you ever had discussion with your family?
Yeah, I mean, I have an entire section of my book dedicated to this. So yeah.
Well, in that case.
Yeah, no, it's something I think a lot about. My sister is a doctor, so I think about it plenty. So it's definitely on my mind. My dad's a professor, my sister's a doctor. So like I have this family that is very much on a conventional trajectory.
Yeah.
So, like I always jokingly say, I think God made a sorting error by putting me with my family.
And what was your thinking as you were like in the early stages of growing your business when, there isn't any massive success to necessarily show for? How did those conversations go?
I mean, I think I basically kind of made a half-hearted effort to find a job to appease them, to like say, okay, look, I'm trying. Yeah. And then, of course, my trying didn't lead anywhere. So it was conveniently my trying didn't lead anywhere. So it was like, okay, look, I've been to all these interviews. Nobody's hiring me. Why am I doing this? This makes no sense. So, it was one of those things where I was like, this is just stupid. Like it was one of those things where I'm like, trust me, I know what I'm doing here, even though it will be completely misunderstood. You guys will not be able to make sense of it, but it will work. And it's taken a really long time, which is one of those things that it does. Mm-hmm. But I mean, let's do this. I want to actually talk about the shift from circus to the whole dancing thing, which is how I found out about you. What sparked the interest in that, like to make that shift? And then I want to actually start talking about the work you do and like, what kind of impact this is, because what drew me into that TED Talk was, one, I always felt that I can't dance. And so I was like, okay, because I remember you saying something like that. I related to that in that moment. I was like, God, I wonder like what an idiot I look like on the dance floor, unless I've had a few drinks. So I was like, okay, I definitely have to talk to this guy. But let's start with kind of the shift from circus to doing what you do now. Like, where did that start and how did it start?
Yeah, it started about when I left Seattle to move to Montreal, which is circus mecca of the world. That's where Cirque du Soleil is located. That is where one of the top circus schools in the world is located. And I decided I wanted to move there and really surround myself with the best of the best, the top people of the world, to soak it all in. And I found myself completely miserable, injured, bedridden, because I couldn't move my neck anywhere without pain because of some dumb trick I was trying to pull. And I was noticing all these people that were at the top of their game and seeing, wow, I actually don't want to live this lifestyle where they are dependent on so many other people to be paid. There's so much outside their control, and they aren't necessarily doing the art that they want to be doing. They are doing what is in demand, what the show needs, and they don't really get to see their friends and family that often. And that, on top of being injured all the time, I'm so tired of being injured at all times. Like, I feel like an old man at this point. And so I thought about different options, and I thought, all right, what if I try and, create a business, said every young know-it-all kid. And I decided, all right, I'm going to move back to New York City and pursue entrepreneurship. I don't know how to spell it. I don't really know what it means, but I'm going to pursue it. And so I moved back to New York, and I was at a bar with various other aspiring budding entrepreneurs, and I was trying to go over some ideas for different things I can do. And jokingly, I said, oh, what if I help men get laid through teaching them how to dance? I thought that'd be funny. And then both the men and women said, yes, very sternly, very seriously. They went, yes, you should. And I went, huh, all right. And so I decided to test it out. And I thought at this point, it's such a brilliant idea. Everyone loves it. I will create a workshop and people will come flooding to me. I will build it and they will come. And as you probably already know, that shit doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And so it took a few attempts, but eventually I discovered that yes, it is, a decent idea with a market of men that could use this. And also that with some work, a lot of work and learning how to market and sell, that it can be profitable. And it just found it felt like a nice way to overlap my artistic desires, creative desires, and also being able to, for the first time ever, create income on my own terms. And so that's kind of how it began.
Okay. Tell me about your first experience of teaching somebody how to dance. I mean, of course, that premise of, going to teach men how to dance so they can get laid. I was like, that is like I said, I mean, what drew me into the story, I was like, wow, this is really unmistakable. Like there's something really special about this. And, it wasn't sleazy in any way at all, but I loved the TED Talk so much. And, it was, like I said, recommended by one of our listeners. Tell me about the first experience of teaching somebody to go through this and kind of talk to me about the before and after of a person who's gone through this experience with you. That's what I'm really interested in.
So I remember the first guy that I taught, he walked into this studio and very shy, and very nervous. And I was also nervous going like, did someone just pay me to teach him how to dance? What the hell? Do not let him on that this is potentially a scam. Like there's no way he's paying me to teach him how to dance, but whatever, let's roll with this. And he told me his story. He said, so obviously I don't know how to dance. Also on top of that, I'm gay. And so everyone expects me to know how to dance. They think I'm a fantastic dancer. And he went, that is so far from the truth. I need so many shots of booze in order to not, get lost in my thoughts, to not feel embarrassed because I know I'm embarrassed myself, to not know that people are staring, wondering, why can't this gay man dance? And for the first, half hour of the lesson, he was staring down at his feet. Like his whole body was basically in that of shame. Just like shoulders caved in, head down, arms crossed, as if he was literally guarding himself from being attacked. And he started learning a few basic moves, like very simple moves, and it started to feel good. And once he got the moves and he started doing it to the beat, and he noticed that, he's like, okay, cool, it's going to the beat. And then his shoulders relaxed, his arms relaxed. And I remember he looked up at the mirror in front of him and then he smirked. He smiled and I went, what's up? He went, oh, I think I'm beginning to learn how to dance. I think I can dance. I went, damn straight you can dance. And it was that look of going from shame to just the faint flickers of pride, just like the beginning embers of pride, just like, oh, look at you, you handsome devil. Yeah, you can dance. It was that look on his face. And that was just my favorite moment. That look of him going, yeah, I got this. I can move. I can feel good moving and look good moving at the same time. And that was thankfully my first experience teaching a guy to dance.
That was awesome. Like I had this scene in my mind of if you've seen the movie Hitch, where you know what I'm talking about. Like, that
was my first dance lesson, actually. Yeah.
Okay. I guess the other bigger question, why is it where does this I can't dance narrative come from? I've told you that myself. Like, I actually believe that right now. And that's kind of what drew me into this story. But why is it that people feel so self-conscious about something like dancing? And I'm curious, so you taught this guy. I'm curious, what are the other sort of changes that you've seen in other people's lives as a byproduct? Like, what are the unexpected changes? I mean, other than hopefully getting laid, which, not that that's a bad change, but I'm curious, what are the unexpected things that have come about from this? And then let's go to that second. But first, where does this whole sort of self-consciousness about dancing come from? Because we're not self-conscious about standing.
Right. Yeah, it's the reason why I even want to do this and why I wanted to do it in the first place was because I was the target audience. I was the target demographic. I couldn't dance for most of my life, and it was embarrassing. And what I found through teaching other guys was that it basically came down to feeling like you are looking less of a man the moment you try to dance. Like, oh God, I've just made a complete ass of myself. Even though at the bar I'm standing there looking pretty cool with my diesel jeans and nice crisp white button down and my vodka martini. Like, I'm looking pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good. But there's this crippling, paralyzing fear that, like, the moment you step onto a dance floor, and if you don't know what you're doing, you will just completely emasculate yourself. Like, you will look like a fool. You will be laughed at. People will think that you are less powerful, less cool. And that's what I felt for most of my life. This feeling of, I could be on the dance floor, or I could stab myself in the eye with a dull pencil. I'm not really sure which one is worse at this moment. Yeah. Public humiliation or, self-inflicted pain. Maybe I'll just go with the self-inflicted pain. And most of the guys I've talked to, every guy I talk to has the exact same thoughts going through his head on a dance floor. They're the thoughts of, I'm too stiff. I look stiff. I look foolish. I'm embarrassing myself. I don't look cool. I can't join in with my friends because, I'm just going to stand out like a sore thumb. It's this feeling that as soon as I'm outed as not cool, I will not be part of the party. I will be made fun of. I will be ostracized and less of a man. And so, basically every single guy that I've come across has used almost those same words to describe what they're feeling. Uh-huh. What goes through your mind?
A lot of those very things. Like, as you're describing that, I can't help but think of all the Indian weddings that I happen to have been at where, I'll see my mom glaring at me for not being willing to go to the dance floor. Uh-huh. If we happen to be at a wedding together, and it's like, I'm like, I don't want to go to the dance floor because I'm like, I can't dance like half these people. And then you add Indian music into that, and it's, a whole other disaster. But yeah, I think I have a lot of those sort of same narratives. And it's funny because it's to me, the issue isn't a lack of being able to dance. It seems like what you're really solving is another problem, but you're using dancing as the mechanism to solve it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's basically therapy through dance,
which I love. I mean, it's such a cool, concept. So, which takes us to that other question. What are the unexpected things that you've actually seen as a byproduct of doing this with guys? Like, what are some things that have really surprised you in this process?
So the part I didn't anticipate when first starting was how it affects their sense of belonging. And so first, when guys came to me, I thought I was literally a doctor fixing some symptom. I have knee pain. Here's something to fix your knee pain. I don't know dance moves. Here are dance moves. I thought it was just simply because most of the guys, they would say like, oh, female friends, they tell me to just relax and feel the music. But for most dudes, that's equivalent of being told, just relax and speak Russian. You'll be fine. Just let it flow. Let the Russian flow. Yeah. And as dudes, you're like, seriously? You're going to tell me just relax and do something I can't do? You're the best. And so I thought I was literally just giving them dance moves so they can go and do dancing. But what I didn't expect was it helped them feel like they belong. Because for a lot of the guys, even though they would come to me first saying, like, I need to know dance moves, after talking to them, they would go, yeah, when I'm out at weddings or parties with friends, I want to feel like I belong. Like, I'm literally good enough to belong. That, I can be with friends and have fun with them. And so even though they may say it's because of a girl or because I want to get laid, most of the time it's just the sense of wanting to belong. And after they learn dance moves, they would say, yeah, I could actually, I'll give an example. One guy, we never actually met in person. He only learned from my online material. He said he wanted to learn how to dance in a year so that he could go to his sister's wedding and enjoy himself with family and friends. And I didn't expect this, but he actually emailed me a year later saying, so the wedding happened and I had a blast. Not only did I feel like I could join in on the fun, but people were approaching me. They wanted to dance with me, and they were commenting on how much fun it was to dance with me. And so that was the biggest surprise, the sense that guys felt like they belonged. And I mean, hell, we all want to feel like we're good enough to belong.
Yeah. Wow. So have you had guys who've ended up in relationships as a byproduct of their learning to dance?
I've had guys that have had some fun rated R experiences.
Okay.
As a result, I'll leave it at that. But I've had guys email me going, yes, or text me going, so this just happened and these women approached me. And at that point, the radio silence I take as a good thing. After they tell me that, so-and-so approached them and they met so-and-so. After that, the few guys I've checked up with, they went, yeah, it went well. So I'm like, all right, cool. Say no more. You're good to go.
Wow. That's really cool. All right. So let's, kind of get away from sort of this part of it. And I want to ask you some questions that I generally ask a lot of people that I have interviewed. One of them is basically artistic influences in your life. When you've mentioned circus, you've mentioned music. So I'm curious, if you look back over the course of your life, as you've done this work, what's one book, one music album, one documentary film, you can do one of each or only one, that has profoundly influenced your life that you'd want to share with our audience?
Let's see. First would be Hitch, just because literally that was my first ever dance lesson. I was getting ready for prom, which again gives my age away. And I wanted to learn how to dance. And so I literally watched that dance scene, Will Smith teaching, I don't remember his name, Kevin something.
Yeah.
How to do the two-step with the arms by the side. And so I did that for like several hours straight at prom. It was the starting point. So there's that. There's, what else is there? Book. One book I give out to most of my guys is The Charisma Myth by Olivia Fox Cabane.
Uh-huh.
And because a lot of dance is really just body language, and changing your body language to music, to a beat. That's really what it comes down to if you're talking about survival. And so I gave him that book because it's the way it's laid out in that book. It's not, charisma is something that you add on, like layer upon layer. Like, all right, Brad Pitt does this with his arms and Will Smith does this with his legs. Most of the book is spent on what do you need to do to get out of your own way so that you can become the most charismatic version of yourself. And that's what I end up spending a lot of time with guys doing, which is like, let's just take away the things that are getting in your way from enjoying the music, because odds are there are going to be some songs that you really enjoy. And so let's remove those barriers. And the book is the same thing. Let's remove the barriers that keep you from being the most badass, sexy, charismatic version of you. So that's book. Music, it's hard to say. Yeah. Maybe NSYNC, just because, it's what got me going.
One other question about the dancing piece. What's been the response from women to the work that you do? I'm very curious. I'm guessing you've gotten to talk, not just women in terms of how they respond to the guys, but responded to your work in general.
Surprisingly positive. At first, when I thought, I was a little embarrassed to even mention it to women. I thought I'd get these looks of like, who do you think you are? Or, what, you're one of those pickup artists, aren't you? And I'd get smacked across the face.
Yeah.
But it's been really positive. Most times they'd say, actually, there's some guy, I need to introduce you to most of my male friends. But I don't want to be like a door-to-door, I don't want to be like thrust upon men like, you need this. But yeah, most of the women have been really enthusiastic, saying more men need to get funky on the dance floor. And I wish they knew that it really doesn't take all that much for us to have fun dancing with other guys, since most guys are concerned with what moves they're doing, and that is so far from the truth of what makes for a fun dance partner for women.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. So I have one last question for you, which is how we finish all our interviews at the Unmistakable Creative. What do you think it is that makes somebody or something unmistakable?
Unmistakable. I guess I'll put it in the context of dance, since the stuff that I spend with my guys doing is, I I know every single guy, you included, Srini, has the potential to be a baller dancer, not because of technique or anything like that, but because, when you hear those songs that just light the fire in your belly, the sense of like this holy funk spirit is just like brewing inside. Like, oh man, here's Uptown Funk, and like, oh, I want to lose my shit to this. Whenever you allow yourself to, even for a second, just let loose, let go of control for a little bit, it is absolutely stunning and beautiful because it's you. You are sharing a piece of you. And so the people I find unmistakably creative, the dancers that I find creative are the ones that bleed in front of others, and not bleed in a bad way, but rather they allow themselves to be seen in the most raw form, even if there isn't good technique, even if it's off the beat, even if it looks weird, whatever it is, they are showing themselves. And to me, that just looks divine. They look like walking gods in those moments, or dancing gods, I should say. And to me, I find that just unmistakably creative. Like, you cannot help but watch and see someone glowing like that.
Well, this has just been awesome. This has been one of my favorite interviews we've done this year. It's just really cool. I'm so glad one of our listeners put your work on my radar. So where can people learn more about what you do?
They can go to mrbenweston.com if they want to meet with me in New York City, or dancefloorarsenal.com. Those are my two online homes. Very cool.
And for everybody listening, we will wrap the show with that.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Unmistakable Creative Podcast. While you were listening, were there any moments you found fascinating, inspiring, instructive, maybe even heartwarming? Can you think of anyone, a friend or a family member who would appreciate this moment? If so, take a second and share today's episode with that one person, because good ideas and messages are meant to be shared.